Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Spring Fest, March 2022. Spring is that time of the year when the promise of spring's arrival is enough to get everyone through the bitter winter. And here we are enjoying, the days becoming more beautiful and with lots of flowers, which many people in the colony have been sharing pictures of blossoming and blooming on their terraces and in the gardens and in the parks. And here we are with another session of the Spring Fest organized by the Vasant Vihar Club.
Might
Um,
want to say that the colony gets its name from this season, Vasant Ritu.
Absolutely. There is a story behind it. I think somebody had spoken about it, or perhaps I've read it somewhere, but there is a reason why this colony has been named Vasant Vihar. Perhaps Vandana can share that with us. But we are delighted to have you all on the show this evening. And today we are taking a trip down memory lane again. This is our third session of, or I should say, the third edition of this talk. And we are very, very lucky that we have residents who have lived here for that long. And we have new residents this time as well who have lived here for relatively long. And it's going to be, and they will be sharing with us what they feel, their stories, their anecdotes, their memories. But before they do that, let me invite our president, General Shankar Prasad, to say a few words and welcome everyone.
Thank you, Sanjana. Thank you, Raj. Uh, Good evening to all the participants who are on the show. Informally, we wish some of them, but some have joined later. I can see a couple of committee members also. As I've said earlier on the three occasions that we've had, or two occasions that we've had, uh, we would have loved to have a physical Spring Fest, but unfortunately, because of the government restrictions which are lifted very recently, we couldn't suddenly shift from the to the from the Zoom to the virtual one. So we are continuing to do this throughout this month, except on the 23rd, we will do a physical meeting of a book club by Sagarika Ghosh. But I can tell you that we are very much keen to do a physical Lit Fest, maybe later in the year, September, October, depending upon how things shape up. And Lit Fest, obviously, festival means that people must meet, people must exchange views informally over a cup of tea or something. Therefore, to create a real atmosphere of festival, we need to have a physical one, which we will do, as we started from 2016 onwards. This Vasant Vihari diary is a very interesting subject, and I never realized it's going to take so much of interest. We find a large number of us who have lived here right from the time the colony was created. And my father built this house in as early as 1971, early 71. And I remember that I'd come on a short leave from Ladakh in the month of about September or so, around Diwali, really. And just on the day of Diwali, I got a telegram that I must return back to the unit forthwith as the war was about to start. That was the first incident that happened with me in Vasant Vihar back in the year 1971. Anyway, there are lovely stories which are coming up, and I just mentioned to Vandana also that we will try and create a book out of this, a coffee table book with all the photographs that people may be having and carry their articles. So it's really becoming very interesting. It is actually Mrs. Bhatnagar who came up with the first one, I think, and it's a wonderful idea. Without taking any more time, let's hear some new people come out with their experiences and their tales of beautiful thing. I think as far as the name is concerned, Sanjana, there used to be a Vasant Gaon here, and perhaps it is because of Vasant Gaon that we got the name Vasant Vihar. And of course, it so happens today that it is Vasant coming these days, so we can do that. But a lot of it is, I think, as far I may be wrong, I'm not too sure. But there was a Vasant Gaon here, which is why perhaps we are Vasant Vihar. So
Uh,
over to you, Sanjana.
Vasant Gao is still here. Vasant Gao is still there.
So perhaps the name is because of
Yeah.
that town. The name is
Maybe
because.
Vandana may have an answer for that.
I
Vandana?
hand over to you, and you can proceed with the proceedings.
Vandana, please share with us. You have to, yeah, and please unmute yourself first. Yeah.
So I guess, firstly, just want to greet everybody. Good evening. And it's really wonderful to be at this, third session, which I think is much more than we had originally envisaged. And as General Shankar Prasad said, that, it's been wonderful to see the interest from all the residents. Didn't anticipate, but we are now actually seeing that more and more stories are coming out. Many of you have already heard me talk about the Vasant Vihar diary in the past sessions, but for those who haven't, VV Diary is really an online connection, collection of basically memories that we are curating from Vasant Vihar as well as from Shanti Niketan. And it's currently in a virtual format, but as General Shankar Prasad said, I think there's definitely room to look at converting and curating this in a print form or in a physical form as well. And sorry, I'm just going to disconnect. There's a call that seems to be coming in. So basically, this is something which we had created a website originally where we had parked all these memories that people were sharing. But thanks to the talented efforts of fellow residents in Vasant Vihar, Kangan and Avani from a firm that they run, WebMe Right, we now have an all new website which is providing this, collection of stories and memories. And I think what we are creating here is really a treasure house of shared memories that we can not only indulge in whenever we want ourselves, but also share with, as they say, carry it forward. So our younger family members, future generations, if they wish, they can also access these readily. So I'm going to request Raj to just, pop up the website so that all of you can get a quick idea of what it looks like. So that's the landing page. And we have four sections in this, where we are first talking about the history of this area, going back 500 years to the Tughlaqs and the Lodi times. And there was a Sufi saint and probably a river in this area. And to answer, the question on how we got this name, one possible story is that there used to be one noble from the Mughal court called Basant, who used to own a sarai in this area, in that village which we call Basant Gaon. So it's possible that this area was named originally after that person. And Vasant Vihar actually was earlier going to be called Basant Nagar, as per the documents that Millie Murgai dug out from her archives, which her father had kept. And only as late as 1967, they decided to change the name of this locality from Basant Nagar to Vasant Vihar, which I think is a definite improvement over Basant Nagar. So we have, as I said, one is the history section. Then there are these voices of Vasant Vihar, which is basically the memories shared by different residents. And it's really getting a lot of fascinating insights ranging from how land was acquired and allocated in BV, and including a listing that Millie very kindly dug out for the draw of lots, which she had the original version, and also challenges of building houses in a time of shortage and permits, then domestic thefts and all of that, commuting challenges, and Vasant Utsav, which many of us would remember. Recently, we've added stories shared by Romi Chopra, Vanita Ranade, Raj also who's connected here, and Millie Murgai. So that's the second section. Then there are, there's a timeline. And did you know, it's just a set of nuggets we pulled out from all these details. The timeline gives you how Vasant Vihar has developed over 5 decades. And basically, shows you the progression in the colony and how it's come to be the way it is today. So there we've basically got a few of these events and institutions that have come up, and things like the 84 riots, the schools that came up, Priya complex, which turned into PVR, the air crash in 1973, protests against the Vasant Kunj malls when they were coming up. A lot of these things that have gone into creation of this whole area. And a fourth section, which is available from the menu on top, which is a collection of some fascinating stories where we've got more details on certain events and institutions that are shown in this timeline. So that's broadly what this site is about. And, all of you are welcome to share your nuggets and your stories. Could be short, one para, could be more, could be 3 pages, even some are long. And as General Shankar Prasad said, I think it's a great idea to also create a physical document, a compilation, which would be another way to have these stories disseminated and shared. So that I think is a great track. And the third, which we are already doing, which is Zoom session recordings, which are accessible on YouTube channel. So I think, frankly, this is a very unique project, and it wasn't something I had thought would be the taking shape the way it is, but it's probably the only one of its kind in not only Delhi. I don't know if it's there in the country, to have a locality come together to share their community history and stories like this. So it's a very unique project. And I think, just to close, I feel it's not only just reigniting individual memories that have been sitting in our own heads and our own families, but it's probably creating a shared legacy, a sense of shared legacy, which is helping to rebuild a lot of the community bonds. So I'm not sure if that's more than what it is, but to me, it feels like that. So I'm really happy it's happening the way it is. And I really look forward to a lot more of the stories that are coming up today and hopefully in the future as well. So thanks to Sanjana, and back to you.
Vanda, I don't know where you got this picture of Vasant Vihar from. This looks like a view from my window.
So it's facing the same park, Raj. So
Yeah,
you,
yeah, this is
you got
almost
that park right.
bang on the view from my front window.
Yeah, we kind of slunk into your house and took that picture on the sly.
So it seems.
Vandana, thank you very much for starting this very interesting concept of the diary, and the website looks really interesting, especially where the timeline is, because we have speakers today here who are going to be talking a little bit about what you have on the timeline of when the Priya cinema came up, and which was the first restaurants which opened up and things like that. So that really ties in very well with the timeline which you have on your website. So without taking much more time, I would like to request our first speaker, Jagmeet Singh, to please introduce himself and also tell us what he remembers of his growing up in Vasant Vihar.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Good evening to everybody. So my name is Jagmeet Singh, and I have very nice and fond memories of Vasant Vihar. So what happened in the 70s, early 70s, uh, I think around 72, 73, my father and mother, they started constructing our house at F block in Vasant Vihar. So those were, of course, difficult days, especially for my mother, because my father, he was an engineer and at that time was posted at Himachal Pradesh. There was a project there where he was the chief engineer. So we were living in government accommodation in Kitwai Nagar. And then I think there was a deadline to build. So around 72, 73, my mother decided to take on this task single-handedly. And we were three small children with her. My father was in Himachal Pradesh. So first two garages were built. On top of that, one unit. On top of that, another unit. So we moved in there, and difficult days, license Raj, no bricks available, no cement. And in those, I was 12, 13 at that time. So studying in modern school, Barakhamba Road. This one in Vasant Vihar, I hadn't yet started. So my duty was to get up early in the morning, being the only male in the house, and go and get milk. So 4:30 or 5 in the morning, I used to walk to the Delhi Milk Scheme Depot, which is just further ahead from where the tennis courts are now. And there used to be all kinds of people there, mostly males, servants, some females also. And there used to be a queue, and one used to wait for the milk van to come, with those aluminum tokens. and which had your allotment, 5 bottles or 6 or whatever. So I used to be doing that. And of course, this place was a kind of a jungle, barren, rocky. And so those are my memories of that time. And then the house was built. My parents, it was a 800 square yard plot, but they didn't have the money that time to build on the whole plot. Half of it was built. The piche ka portion that was khali. And then after about a year or so, when it was built, we moved back into government accommodation. And I remember the cost of construction in those days, it was a big amount, 1 lakh or so. That's what I remember. And my father had taken loans, and so we moved back to government accommodation, and the house was let out to a gentleman, American person, Mr. Young. I think at the princely rental of 2,000 rupees.
Wow.
So then that is one memory which I have. And then, of course, in front of my eyes, I could see the construction of modern school, Vasant Vihar, starting. Uh, well, in 1985, we moved back to Vasant Vihar. My father had just about retired then from government service. And the 84 riots had taken place. We moved back in 85. And I have very fond memories because 86, I got married. Uh, and 89, my daughter was born. And I lived with my parents. We were on the ground floor. Uparwala was given on rent. And then I moved into my own flat at Vasant Kunj. I had been allotted one, after, when my daughter was 4, 5 years old or so. But then what happened in 2007? So all along, my parents were still there. In 2007, uh, my parents decided to construct again, just so that their children would enjoy better facilities, and they would have a flat each for themselves. So at that age, my parents, they shifted from Vasant Vihar to a small flat in Munirka. The house was broken down, and a new one was constructed along with the basement and 2 floors. And they did all this just for us children. So I'm filled with gratitude to be part of this wonderful family, not only of my parents, but of the Vasant Vihar family. Such a lovely colony. As I've grown up, one has seen, what facilities our colony has, lovely schools, all kinds of religious temple, church, a wonderful gurdwara, and parks, and everything, markets, uh, nice doctors, I mean, and wide roads. So, of course, now a lot of things are taking place, have started, ghar ko tod ke dobara banana and all that. But still, it's a lovely colony, one of the best in Delhi, I would say. And so I don't know how many minutes I've already consumed up, but I think I've got about 5. And so well, these are lovely memories of this place. And I'm so fortunate and blessed. And thanks to my parents and thanks to God that I have this place in Vasant Vihar and the Vasant Vihar Club. How can I forget that? What a wonderful club. A lovely library and nice restaurants, tennis courts. I played a bit of tennis over there. Now, yesterday I went to play badminton. Lovely facility they've made. We have this new thing also coming up that I've forgotten the name, but
Ball,
Pickleball, you mean?
ball.
yes, yeah.
Pickleball.
So lovely things are happening. I wish there were more squash courts, and table tennis was a little better facility, but things are opening up now. And I played bridge in the Vasant Vihar club, and my mother and parents used to go there and play. A lovely. Well, thank you so much. I think that about sums up my uh, little talk over here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jagmeet ji, for
No,
sharing
G, please.
your
Thank you.
memories. Okay, thank you so much. Next, I would request Deepa Kapoor to share her memories because she has been living in the colony for a very long time. And For people who don't know, Deepa Kapoor was one of the first presidents of the RWA, who's I think in many ways responsible for the RWA the way it is now. And let's hear from her, sharing her story and her memories.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I have been living here in this house of D1 from 1985, but my memory of Vasant Vihar goes back to 1968 because my father, who had just retired from the railways, said to me before I got married, end of 1968, come, I'll show you the land we are going to build on. So he drove me to Vasant Gaon, and there was a small kuwa over there, a well, where the Jal board is today. And he parked the car and he said, look at this land in front of us. And it was this huge, barren, rocky land. And he said, we're going to build here in the next few months. And I was so upset. I said, Dad, this is like in the wilderness. Where are you going to live? So he said, never mind. So then I got married and I went abroad, and my father built his house in 1969 and moved into A9 by 33. And at that time, there were just a few houses when I returned on a visit. There was Mr. Avasti of the railways in A5. And, that was the origin of what I remember of this colony. And after that, we were again abroad, and I came back with my husband, and we rented a home in 1972 in F block, in F8 by 11, F8 by 8. And there were only 2 or 3 houses down F8. And my other neighbor on F6, which was a corner plot, was Mr. Nanjapa, who was actually the first president of the Vasant Vihar Welfare Association. His house was there and another house. And we were on F8, 2-3 houses. And the rest of the land was completely, there was nothing around. And there was a very interesting incident that happened when we lived there for 3 years. In the following year, I remember there was a big power failure. And my husband and I then decided to go and stand in the balcony on the first floor. And we were looking out at the skyline, and it was very quiet. And to our shock, we saw an aircraft flying very low, quite close to F block, which I think now would be like the CBI colony and where the big Nala is. And we were watching, just watching this aircraft, and it came lower and lower. And in a few minutes, there was a big crash, and there was a huge fire and a lot of noise, and the aircraft came down. And, we both were so stunned, we left the house and we started running towards this huge tragedy that we saw happening within maybe 100, 200, 500 yards from where we lived. And the land was so rocky that even to reach that aircraft, broken down aircraft, was like impossible. And we went there and we could see bodies were strewn all over. And there was no way for a vehicle to reach there. And I remember there were villagers and some Vasant Viharis who went there. And on 2-wheelers, they were picking up injured people who were screaming because they were broken up. And it was the same aircraft in which the minister of that time, Kumara Mangalam, passed away. He died in that aircraft. And it was so close to Vasant Vihar, and it was such a trauma and a sad thing that we had to watch from our F block home. Now that was in 73, I think, if I'm not forgetting. After that,
73, I was also there at the crash site.
That's right. Then we came back to India and we bought our home in 85 in D1 Road. And we have been living here since then. And after coming here, I decided to get very involved with the Welfare Association. I became the block representative for D block. And gradually in 1996, I became the vice president of Vasant Vihar Welfare Association. And while I was the vice president, one morning I get a phone call from Dr. Siddharth Mehta's mother, Mrs. Krishna Mehta, who was at that time the president of the Ladies Club. She rang me up in the morning and said, Deepa ji, I'm very upset. I want to tell you that I went for a walk down Purvi Marg, and the end of Purvi Marg, there is that Scindia land was there, which is now the biodiversity park, that there are about 3 dozen trees are being cut by labor. So I'm very worried because I don't know why they're cutting trees. So should we go and check it out? So I said, sure. So I took my car and I and Krishnaji went around and we saw these people, and they were DDA people cutting a lot of trees. So we asked them and they said, ma'am, there is a road being built into Purvi Marg from this land. So we asked them what was the reason. They said, we don't know, the officers are not here, but they are on the other side. So we drove all the way around and we went to the area where today there is the ONGC building and the mall start. And it was a very quiet area. And so Mrs. Mehta and I drove there and we saw a lot of engineers and lots of people there. So we asked them what was happening. They said, ma'am, the government of India has floated international tenders for 4 or 5 hotels to come up in this area and convention centers. So we said, what is Vasant Vihar got to do with this whole thing? So they said, ma'am, we have been ordered to cut a road from this point across into Purvi Marg and make a highway that will connect up with the link road or the ring road, which is now, as we see, where the flyovers are. So we were horrified. We said, but why would you enter our colony? They said, well, there's the only way to connect this huge project that the Indian government has decided to do. So we came back and I rushed to the Welfare Association, and my president was Mr. S.P. Kapoor. And I had a meeting with him. And then we called in the residents, senior residents like Mr. Rathi, and we called in even Mr. Aluwalia was there, and we had a big meeting. And we said, we need to do something, because if this becomes a highway, Vasant Vihar will be destroyed. So they said, well, let's do something. So we approached Mr. Rajiv Nair, who was the son of Mr. Kuldeep Nair, Bharti Nair. He was a lawyer at the High Court. And we asked him if he could help us fight this case. So he said, I'll try, but I'm not guaranteeing that we'll win, and I'll charge you no money. So he took us to the High Court, and we lost the case because the High Court said that the DDA has the right to do change of land use if it is in the public interest. So we are sorry, if they are making this highway through Purvi Marg, we can't stop it. So we failed over there, and it was very, very upsetting for the Vasant Viharis. And once again, we went back to the drawing board and said, we have to stop this from happening to our colony. So just by chance, I happened to know a gentleman living on A10 by 4 called Mr. Vikram Soni. This is Mr. Gautam Soni's brother. And I went to him, and I had heard that he was a professor, a scientist in JNU, and he was an environmentalist. So I went to him with my colleagues and we asked him that, can you help us? So he said, yes, I am already in the court trying to save the ridge. And we have been able to show the court through Mr. Rajiv Dhawan, who was a very senior Supreme Court lawyer. Through him, Vikram Soni's group had gone to him and to say that there are big water bodies in the ridge near Vasant Vihar, and there's a lot of fauna and birds and everything. We need to stop construction in that area. So we said, can you help us? Because we are interested in stopping the road into Vasant Vihar. So he said, sure. So he took us to Rajiv Dhawan and we met him. And Rajiv Dhawan said, yes, I will take this to the Supreme Court and I will not charge you any money, which was really nice. So we went to Supreme Court through Rajiv Dhawan. And I remember going to about 3 of the sittings in the Supreme Court. And to our very happy experience, Justice Kuldeep Singh was the judge sitting on this case of where Rajiv Dhawan was presenting the case. So while we were there, Mr. M.C. Mehta, who you must have all heard of, was the great environmentalist and who had filed a lot of cases. He had his case in front of Justice Kuldeep Singh. So while this argument was going on, Rajiv Dhawan intervened and said, sir, This is a similar case of the ridge near Vasant Vihar. So Justice Kuldeep Singh, in his amazing judgment, he said this is absolutely not acceptable. How can this happen? How can the water table go down? How can you have 6 hotels over here? And by that time, the Grand Hotel had already started getting built. So Justice Kuldeep Singh passed a judgment in favor of stopping this project, and the project of these international hotels and the convention centers was cancelled. And the DDA had to give an affidavit saying that we will not build the road through Vasant Vihar. And to our great happiness, we have got an affidavit, a copy of which is lying in the Vasant Vihar Association office, says that we guarantee not again will we touch Vasant Vihar by making any highways through Vasant Vihar. And it was one of the greatest things that happened, and we succeeded without paying a penny out of our pockets or our Sant Vihar pockets. So I must say it was a great achievement. And I think the achievement probably made people realize in Vasant Vihar, my seniors, that a woman, that's me, a nobody, I guess, who had the capacity to, do something so big, that the following year they told Mr. S.V. Kapoor that, sir, please step down and let Deepa Kapoor become the president of Vasant Vihar. And that's how I did a tenure of 8 years as the Vasant Vihar colony president. And of course, I did many more things, which my colleagues, I had a great team of my colleagues, and we saved a lot of other things in Vasant Vihar. I don't want to take up more time, but there's one little thing I want to mention, if I'm allowed.
Sure, please go ahead.
So this is now into 1980-81, and I was walking down towards between C6 and C5, there's a link road. And I was seeing that there were again the DDA labor building a road from the Gaon into Vasant Vihar, a Pakka road, where they could be having 3-wheelers coming in. So I asked these people, how are you doing that? It is a green belt. And this is this whole thing is a green belt. So they said, ma'am, the member of parliament has allowed this to be built, and it is with his funds. So I said, no way. I mean, this is no way our colony will be allowed to have this entrance. So I rang up the director of DDA and I said, sir, if you don't stop this road, I will call the press. And there will be a lot of bad blood for the member of parliament, because this is an illegal thing that's being done. And lo and behold, the member of parliament immediately stopped, and the labor all ran away. But then I realized that the Gaon had encroached into the green belt a great lot. So I asked DDA, the director, I said, where is the limit of the Gaon? How come they have started, there's a lot of construction, and their pigs, and there's a Balmiki colony there. And all their pigs used to sit in that green belt in the dirty swamps, which were all there for over ages. So the DDA said that, ma'am, when the colony was built, the boundary of the Gaon, there was no demarcation, because the Patwari of that time was Khilaud money by whoever, the Gaon people, and all the records of the demarcation of the Gaon have been disappeared from our records. So I said, how do we prevent them from coming further? So they said, well, ma'am, and I said, get rid of these pigs. So they said, okay, ma'am, we can do one thing for you. They had 1,000 broken tree guards lying in the green belt in a heap. So I told them, in order to save whatever's left of the green belt, why don't you make a fencing of this kacha fencing of these broken guards? So they made a fence over there, and then with pumps, for 1 month, they threw out all those dirty swamp water from that area into our sewage pipes. And eventually the pigs disappeared, and that boundary stayed for a long time to prevent the Gaon from encroaching our land further. And I believe now, because I've just sent my guy to check up, I haven't been there for 15 years, that there is some kind of a broken boundary wall which prevents the Gaon from getting further into the belt. And now it's a beautiful green area, because the DDA planted thousands of trees at our request. So that was one more great thing that protected our colony from further encroachment. That's
What an incredible story.
these are
And
the few things.
yesterday we celebrated International Women's Day, but here we have somebody who is, an epitome of what
It's just
a
that
woman can do and what a woman can achieve once she sets a mind of it on about something.
I
So
think every
what an
Vasant Vihari.
incredible story,
Thank you,
Deepaji.
Sanjana.
And
But everybody in Vasant Vihar who is there will protect this colony, because we are so proud that we have this gorgeous place and we would like to see it.
absolutely. I
Thank you.
think we are all grateful that we are living in this colony, and now through this diary, we are connecting with each other. And these are the little memories which bind us all together.
Thank you.
So
Imagine
thank you
what
for
a
sharing
different
that.
face Vasant Vihar would have had if we had allowed, or
Absolutely,
Sarji and her team had allowed the road to go through
Yes,
Purvi Marg. It would have
absolutely.
been a disaster for us. Thank you
That's
so much.
and also if that road was made, between Vasant Gaon and Vasant Vihar, I mean, I think
absolutely. And that
C
was,
block would have been a very, very different block altogether.
yes.
So kudos to you, Deepaji.
Thank
Next, we have for us somebody who is not lived here for that long but has left her own mark. We have Glossy Sabarwal. So, Glossy, please introduce yourself and also tell us what makes Vasant Vihar so special for you.
Thank you so much, Sanjana. Thank you so much, Raji. It's an honor to be part of this beautiful memory lane, what you call it. I mean, whose Sanjana? I want to know whose idea was to begin this, because this is something I have never seen before in any of the forum. I'm part of Shanti Niketan Club. I'm part of Gurgaon TLF Club. And I have never seen anything like this. You're going down the memory lane. Whose idea was this?
So, this is the idea of Vanna Bhatnagar, who is a
you.
long time resident of the colony. And
Lovely,
yeah,
lovely.
Really
and
nice.
she did. Oh, I think you missed the introduction. And this is the third edition of a trip down memory lane. So we've had two other where people have shared, their stories about Shanti Niketan and Vasant Vihar.
This is lovely. So, for those who have just
Maybe for the
joined,
benefit
I-
of Dossi and others who may have joined late, Vandana has also put up a website called Vasant Vihar Diary, and I had shared it in the beginning. And again, towards the end of the program, I'll share that again.
lovely. Thank you so much, Raji, Sanjana, Vandana ji. I'm really grateful. I am not from Delhi. I'm from Amritsar. I am a doctor by profession, married into a family of 150 plus doctors. So it's when I came to Delhi, I was in Shanti Niketan. That was the first colony that I stayed, and honestly, I did not like it. We still have a house there, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place, very clean, very niche, but too poised. Somebody who's coming from a community living, a small city like Amritsar. I wanted people to connect to. I like to talk, and then in 2015 we shifted to Vasant Vihar. And at that time, I remember it used to be very, very annoying, because there was a construction going on from Shanti Niketan Road to Vasant Vihar when you are entering. And that construction used to be taking a toll and traffic jam and all of that. But somehow Vasant Vihar attracted so much. Schools were around, so I was very happy that okay, my son is going to go walking to school. There's going to be no bus, no rush in the morning. There was a club, Vasant Vihar club that time, and I was very happy that we are going to go to the club. So ever since then we kept going to and fro, back to Mama's house, back to Vasant Vihar, kept doing that. And then in 2016, I opened my clinic here, and never to look back now. It's become like an extended family. I step out and I just have to, I mean, this kind of fellowship, this kind of community, I have never seen. People know you, you know them. You just put one message and someone would be there for your rescue. People have started taking examples of Vasant Vihar community work, whether it is the welfare association or the club or the community building or the divas network. So it has become amazing. So all credit goes to our seniors who have done this, because somebody did something and the benefits that we are taking now. So thank you so much, Deepaji. If that flyover would have come, would have been a disaster for us. Now that this is something really interesting. It's beautiful now that we have the Priya complex come up with amazing restaurants. And earlier it was just barren. We had no place to go even for coffee in 2015. And now we are spoiled for choices.
We have a coffee cafe in the club as well.
Yeah, there's
It's
a
spoiling
coffee
for there
cafe.
as well.
Yeah, there's a coffee cafe in the club. And I remember in 2016 or 17, I did my first, my son's birthday party in the club. And I was amazed by the list of vendors they had, the list of everything. And then, of course, COVID came and everything took a back seat for 2 years. But here we are back again, and it feels really nice. I wish I had more memories of 1980s and 90s to share, but we are here to make memories now. And thank you so much for having me over. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Glossy. I thought, you've helped a lot in the community building, because during the very troubled COVID times, you were there, with all of us, the whole colony. They were depending a lot on you and your advice and your guidance. So thank you for doing that. And, we are part of the community, each one of us. So and we make it the way, and we shape it the way we want to shape it. So we are all part of it together. Thank you for sharing your memories with us. Next, we have Tejeshwar Sabharwal, again somebody who's lived here for a very long time. And Tejeshwar, please introduce yourself and share what you have to share with us. Over to you.
Good evening, Ji. Good
Good
evening.
evening, very good evening to you too.
And pleasure to be on this forum with all of you. Just this, couple of things I'd like to share. I think my dad moved into Vasant Vihar in 1972 when he retired from the army. And we had a plot on A9 by 19, but that was not built. And we took up residence in F10 by 3, belonging to Puneet Kapoor's dad.
Small world. Right.
And I think some rental of some $3,000 a month or something like that.
That's a lot more than what Jagmeet got for, or his father got. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. And there were, I think, maybe about 4 or 5 houses on F10 Street that's which were built at that time. And I remember I was in class 8 at that time, and I was going to Air Force School. So one would cycle to school. And in the afternoons, it was cycling to where Priya is today. Was an old, I think, army camp or something like that with a helipad where we would play cricket. And this road, which is connected along the JNU and going to Vasant Kunj, did not exist. It ended at Munir Ka Marg.
So there was nothing beyond that.
Nothing beyond that. That was the end. That was Vasant Vihar.
Okay.
So Munir Ka Marg was the boundary.
Right.
And then we were here for about 4 years, and Dad started building his house, and things that sort of thing happened. But my memories is, like going into C block. C block was one restaurant, that was Golden Dragon, which had opened at somewhere, I think about 72, 73. And there was Modern Bazaar, which opened, I think then he was also in C Block in one of the kotis there. And we would cycle there to pick up stuff. And Janta Dhaba came up. That was an interesting place to go to every time. And on the corner of Puri Marg, Pashchimi Marg, there used to be a little dhaba there, where we used to walk down, give our atta, get rotis made.
Okay.
And that was where the bus stand used to be. So the bus stand going out of Vasant Vihar used to originate from there. So it was, really basic living. From Moti Bagh to Vasant Vihar was an impossible commute because nobody would take you there, to bring you to Vasant Vihar at all, and you had to somehow find your way back home. It was very funny. I used to wait at Moti Bagh, coming from school. Sometimes I used to hitch a ride to the Moti Bagh crossing and then get dad to pick me up when he was coming home.
So Vasant Vihar is definitely more connected now. We have the metro as well.
Oh yeah.
So that's not something which our children and grandchildren are going to
Well, that's
worry about.
that's what we've seen, and of course, as everybody mentioned about the ridge, and you see that the ridge area was totally ravines and jungle, rocks, and if I may say, my dad being a shikari, we used to go and shoot some partridges and have them for dinner.
Okay.
And
were you allowed to do that at that time?
Oh yeah, you got a license for it.
Okay.
You got a license for it.
Okay.
And they used to be you got a permit to do that.
Right.
So 2nd October that permit used to start up to the month of February, Holi.
Okay.
So I think the first movie that I saw in Priya was Priya was only English movies, I think, if I remember correctly. So that was one good place where everybody would come and say, we're coming to your house for lunch and then we're going to see a movie. So I had all my school friends lined up for lunch and then we'd go movie. And then we decided to do a circuit, Golden Dragon lunch, Priya movie. That was a great outing. In a total of $50 per head.
Wow.
And most of you
did you see the cinema come up while you were
yeah, the whole area was built up in that time only.
Right.
Modern School, I think 73 was ready, or 74, I'm not sure. It was right behind the house, so we could see the construction happening.
I think it started in 75.
Yeah, okay. You know better. Because after about 4 years, we moved out of Vasant Vihar. Dad took a place in Mayfair Gardens, and then we came back again to Vasant Vihar after about another 3 years. So we took up a house on E1 by 5. So we stayed on E1 street till I got married over there on E1. It was an old house, a little house on a 600-yard plot with a huge garden.
Mm-hmm.
And that time the Vasant Vihar Society office, that hall was ready, I think, and my brother got married there.
The Kalyan Kendra Hall.
Kalyan Kendra.
What is called
what was it called at that time? I'm not sure.
I think it must have been called the community center at that time.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So that's what it was, and that was constructed. C block was the hub of everything. The D block market and the E block markets were very small, tiny, basically grocery stores, and that's it. What I remember.
Right.
And 1982, I left to join T, so I was out for 14 years after that. A lot happened in Vasant Vihar thereafter.
Wonderful.
So
Thank
I'll share. There's few experiences that I can share with you guys. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you for sharing them with us. And perhaps if you can tell us which were the movies which you actually saw at Priya, if you can recall,
Oh,
and maybe put that
I'm
put it
trying to
down on the
recall. I
website.
can't.
I
I'm
think
so
that would be
sorry.
interesting to know. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Tejeshwar. Uh, um, we now have Meena Singh with us, and again, she's been staying here for a long time, and she's going to be sharing her memories with us. Meena ji, over to you. We can hear you. You can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
am
yeah,
I
yeah.
muted?
You're not muted. Yeah.
I
Wonderful.
haven't lived here all along, Sanjana.
You've been lived here for long enough, I would say.
No. Let me correct this. We lived in Vasant Vihar, I think from 1978 to about 81 for 3 years. And then we left. We were actually staying on a farm in Gurgaon. That is before Maruti came up and acquired our land. So we were on a farm and just married recently. And father-in-law said, I think you guys had better stand on your own feet. So we got shunted out. So my husband said, you better get a job. So I got a job teaching in LSR for 800 rupees. And he got a job with DCM for 1600 rupees. And we rented a place in E7 Street, a 2-bedroom place. That was in, I think, 1978. And those 3 years were the happiest years of our life because there was always something very special about Vasant Vihar. I think it's maybe losing that now. I don't have the same glowing feeling about Vasant Vihar that some of the other speakers have now. One of the things was that at that time, Vasant Vihar was very sort of friendly, and one day somebody came at the gate, and I saw this man standing outside. He looked like Chowkidar, right? So I said, "Ha, kya baat hai?" Madam ji, he says, apne bachon ko sambhalo. Because E7 Street is right behind modern school. So, and at that time, modern school didn't have a wall or anything. And there were no trees, there were trees, they were planted, but they were all about like 3 feet or 4 feet max. And from E7 Street, you could see all the way through to modern school, the grounds and everything. And he said, कुछ करिए, आपके बच्चे सुबह सुबह पहुंच जाते और गेट को पकड़ के ऐसे करते, खोलो. They loved school so much that they would reach there before time. Or one day, I saw again at the gate, the bell rang, and there was a very sweet lady standing outside, very young, and she looked very much from some, small town. And I thought, I said, and I was teaching in LSR, and I remember I used to wear very high heels. And I used to walk, because I was all of 23, you see, I got married early in those days. And I would walk into class and 60 girls would stand up and say, "Good morning, ma'am." And, it sort of went to your head also. So I said, yes, what is it? I said, to this lady and she said, नहीं हम अभी यहाँ आए हैं वसंत विहार में तो हमने सोचा कि हम आपसे मिलें. There was no question of, ringing up beforehand or saying anything. And that was Mrs. Gaur, and she had this little Sachin in tow. He was all of 4 years old. And she said, हमारे बच्चे school में जाए. Everybody was very sort of very friendly. And all the houses in E7 Street had the same height of boundary wall. So you could see to the left and you could see to the right. And if you want a little more privacy, you just put some flower pots there, you see. But it was not like it is today. Everybody has their own boundary wall and their own balcony jutting out, and some balconies jut out and onto the road and some are set back. And we had these 2 small bedrooms. And I must say that now when I drive in Vasant Vihar, I'm scared because these huge SUVs come at you. And each SUV was the size of my bedroom, I tell you, back in 1978, 79. And, but we were so happy because everyone was very sharif, There was, I remember, this Dr. Soor. Dr. Soor was an institution. He was the homeopath and he could cure everything, whether it was hepatitis or insomnia or tension, bad marriage, anything. Everybody went to Dr. Soor. And it was for free. All had a little box where you put in 10 rupees. Or something like that, And he was so good. He was such a good doctor. And then there was Dr. Irene Kutar on, I can't remember the name of that road, that main road. And every lady in Vasant Vihar, young and old, went to Dr. Irene Kutar, for everything. It was so good. And of course, there was this super bazaar, because in 78, 79, 80, there was shortage of everything. I mean, you didn't just go into all these, general merchants that you have now in every market and say, give me 5 kg oil and give me this thing, that. You didn't get oil, so you went to Super Bazaar, and there they gave everyone just that 1 liter of oil. Sometimes there was a shortage of sugar. And Super Bazaar was in the basement of C Block Market at the back. And you had to go to Super Bazaar to get everything that you needed because you couldn't get it in the little markets. And at right angles to Super Bazaar, on that road, it was not Modern Bazaar. It was called, I think it was Modern Store or something like that. And I would have these friends, from golf links or somewhere saying, oh, we're coming to Vasant Vihar. And I say, I hope you'll visit me. No, we don't have any time. We'll have to go and order. I need some Noritaki plates. So that they would go and order some of the big demand at that time was Revlon lipstick. So this guy, I mean, he would just open a catalog and you ordered your a toy for the kid, or you ordered your Revlon lipstick, or you ordered whatever you wanted, shoes, clothes, you name it. So these were some of the little things about Vasant Vihar. I remember that when I told my mother that, we've decided to live in Vasant Vihar. And she said, oh, that's so far from college. Don't expect me to help you. Now you should shift to east of Kailash or, defense colony. But even at that time, Vasant Vihar was somehow a prestigious colony. And my husband was very keen because he'd been shunted out of his farmhouse that he should live in a prestigious colony. And that was Vasant Vihar. And so even though my mother threatened, that she wouldn't babysit for me and that I would be on my own and, but still it was just very, very supportive. as somebody else also said, Vasant Vihar. And all the houses I remember on East 7th Street were just that one level, for a ground floor. There was maybe one house that had, you know, what we used to call barsati in those days. They had a barsati on top, but that was it. So it was all very, you know, very friendly. You just looked across from the side and there was your neighbor, and if she wanted to say hello, she said hello. Otherwise, it was okay. And on our side, on the right-hand side, there was a gentleman from the Philippines. And one day I saw that there was a monkey sitting on the wall. Now, at that time in Vasant Vihar, you didn't see animals, not like you do now, you know, cows everywhere and cats and dogs and monkeys. But at that time, it was, you know, you never saw any. And there was never an issue with garbage disposal. The thought just didn't even strike us that there could be any such problem. I mean, the garbage just went somewhere when the sweeper took it, and we never saw dhalaos or this or piled up garbage or anything like that. So this man is sitting, the Philippine gentleman from the Philippines, he gave a can of Tuborg beer to the monkey. So I said, oh my God, the monkey's drinking beer, my children, you know, the kids were like 4 years old and 7 years old. I said, oh no. So I go out, and my neighbor next door, the husband was with the Moria Hotel. And he had a driver. We didn't have a driver. I had an ambassador car, I remember, 7310, in which I used to go to LSR. And I said, and there was this big burly Sardar driver, and I said, oh, ji kuch karo, I told him. So he said, ha, Panji, tusi bori lao. So I said, yeah. I said, yeah. He said, bori hai. I said, yeah, bori. I brought a bori. He went up to the monkey, took hold of one arm or leg or whatever you call of the monkey, and put the monkey on his back. You see, he was very clever, because if he had held the monkey might have bitten him. But he puts the monkey on the back, so the monkey couldn't get to anything except his very, very strong back. And then he said, you know, and he puts the monkey in that bori, and he takes the bori and he puts it in the dicky of my ambassador car, 7310. And he said, oh, ladder. So I get into the car and I start driving, and I drive all the way to, you know, where Vasant Valley School is now. Vasant Valley School at that time was all jungle, complete jungle. So I stopped my ambassador car, and I get out and I open the dicky, and out jumps the monkey. He runs off into the forest, and I close the dicky and I come back. You know, it's just simple life, but all kinds of friendly people. And then, you know, there's not like so many cars, and everybody, if anybody was, you know, fussy about their children, the max they would do was sit on the back of the bicycle, and the servant would wheel the bicycle. Servant was not allowed to ride the bicycle with Baba sitting at the back. You know, he had to wheel the cycle, and he would go all the way to modern school at the back and wheel it. So it was very happy, and suddenly this idol ended because my father-in-law suffered at a very young age a heart attack. And I remember we got a call, and so we had to dash to Gurgaon, and there was a doctor living behind C Block Market. Somewhere towards the end where there's that little cafe, I can't remember his name. And I said, he said, you have to come with us, you have to come with us. And he came with us, and he walked in and he said, sorry, but you know, he's no more. And then we sent the car back, and he refused to take any payment. Firstly, he came, who comes these days? And then he refused to take any payment because the patient had died. And so we left. And that was it. So my experience of Vasant Vihar has not been very long, but in 2010, again, because it had become electronic city, and 500 acres, including our small farm, had been acquired by Maruti a long time ago, an electronic city. Now we decided, okay, time was up, we couldn't stay outside. And guess where we decided to live? So
Back in
we
Vasant
decided to come to Vasant Vihar, and we've been living here since 2010. But I miss that camaraderie and the friendliness, because now all I see around me are either the guards or the maids. Nobody ever steps out of their house, or I don't see them, or whatever. So thank you.
That was a trip down memory lane for sure, because everybody must have felt those glimpses of being with the monkey and riding the ambassador car. And of course, I mean, when you were teaching at LSR, I think some of the audience must have been part of. I mean, some of them might have been your students too, Meenaji. So, thank you for sharing your story with us. And
General
I'm
Saab's
sure.
wife was with me in LSR.
Sorry, whose wife?
General Saab's wife, General Prasad,
There you go.
and Mr. Gurpreet Bindra's wife was my
Okay,
student.
right. Of
So
course,
many in
there you go.
LSR.
There you go. Yeah. So, thank you to Deepa ji, Meena ji, Jagmeet, Tejeshwar, and Glossy for being part of Trip Down Memory Lane. Vandana, I'm sure you must have got some interesting snippets to put down on your website. And
Well,
Raj, if you
certainly
could
about the
share
monkey.
specifically about the monkey and how the monkey was let out near where Vasant Valley is, because that used to be all forest. And I would definitely ask the Jeshwar to think about the movies which he watched at Priya, because I think there could be a timeline with the movies there, since we are all such
So,
Unless he was with some girlfriend and he didn't focus on the movie.
and
Tejeswar, is that the fact?
well, I mean, good luck to him for that.
Too
But
late.
Deepa ji, incredible story that you've shared with us, and we are so happy that you were able to achieve so much, and
Sanjana,
we are
let me just
all
add
we are
one thing.
all sitting here,
Just
thankful
to
to
add
you
something.
for doing that. Yeah.
No, just after that, having stopped by the Justice Kuldeep Singh, the Bhurilal Commission was set up because of our case with Justice Kuldeep Singh, and that is how history of Bhurilal Commission was set up. So, it is something that we
Yeah.
initiated by pushing it through. Yes.
Wow. So, I mean, this is like a historical fact that
Even for
Vasant Vihar,
Delhi, that the
Vasant
Bhurilal
Vihar has
Commission
always been, the residents of Vasant Vihar have been trendsetters.
contributed. Yes.
Yeah. Let me just read few of the comments which are there in the chat. This is from Sujata Madhok. Many of us have had similar memories. Great to hear these. Jasleen, really enjoyed listening to you, Jagmeet. This was for Deepaji you. Cheers for you and Vikram Soni from Sujata Madhok. Vandana Bhatnagar, truly impressive achievements. I think this was again about what you spoke about, Deepaji. Jasleen, cheers, Deepa. Indresh Narayan, how wonderful, Deepa. Jagmeet Singh, wow, so lovely to hear all this. Truly a woman of substance. Deepaji, a pleasure to meet you and hear you here. Vandana Bhatnagar, VV was truly frontier territory in the early days. I would say we still continue to be frontier territory, Vandana.
Yes,
Hence,
I guess in many ways.
yes, of course. Sonia Mehta, truly impressive, Deepa. So wonderful to hear everyone. Sheer nostalgia takes me down the memory lane. Justine, thanks everyone for sharing their stories. Um, so thank you all for being part of the evening today. Just want to remind you that on the 12th, there is a talk on religion, constitution, and judicial activism, which is going to be anchored by Neeraj Grover, which is at 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. So do join us, which is part of the Spring Fest.
Very, very interesting lineup of panelists there. A justice, a retired justice, an advocate, and Shiv Khera, resident of Vasant Vihar.
Right. Shankar Prasad, would you like to say
Has he
your,
rejoined?
he is there? Okay, perhaps not. Um, Mr. Aluwalia, would you like to say something?
Uh, Before you wind up, I mean, yes, you announced a Saturday program, but maybe a couple of other ones. I mean, we have a book review on 16th, which is the Wednesday next, and we are discussing taxation post-budget 2022 on the Saturday next, which is 19th March. And then there is a book review, which is going to be held physically and not on Zoom, and that's at the Aravali Hall in Kalyan Kendra. Sagarika Ghosha's book would be discussed, and she'd be in conversation with Sanjana Raj. And the finale of the Spring Fest is a tribute to Raj Kapoor. So that will be a primarily musical program towards the end of the Spring Fest on Saturday, 26th March.
Thank you for sharing all that with us, Raj. Mr. Aluwalia, would you like to say a few words before we sign off?
Yes, Sanjana. I think that this particular evening has been extremely good. We had all these our good old friends, speaking about their their experience, which I think is very rather invaluable. I don't think anybody can even think of today that 20 years back or 30 years back, how we were living in Vasant Vihar. And I'm very happy with Deepa. It's amazing that we could stop Puri Marg being rode to the airport, passing through, and where now I'm walking every day in that Bidar City Park. It's so nice and good, and all our residents, one time or other, have contributed to Vasant Vihar, let's say, and I thank everybody for coming and giving their things, stories.
Yeah, I know. I think we are very fortunate that we are living in a colony which is surrounded by greenery.
Yeah.
And, in many ways, we still have trees around us. Glossy, I think I missed saying thank you to you. So thank you as well for being part of this session. And on that happy note, wish you all good night and look forward to seeing you on March the 12th at 7:30 with another discussion about religion, constitution, and judicial activism. Stay safe and take care of yourself. Bye bye. And do visit the website, which we will share, the link of which, the details of which we will share on the WhatsApp group. So,
Let
and
me
if you
show it
like,
once more out here for those who want to see it. It's very simply vasantvihardiary.com.
It's now a much shorter web address, and I'll put it on the WhatsApp group as well, so people can explore. Yeah.
Good.
great.
Okay.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Everyone,
Good night,
thank you so much.
everyone. Take care. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.